Welcome back to State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone. You're watching Norfolk Public Access. And I have tonight a candidate running for Selectman. His name is Kevin Kalkut. He's been on here before. He is also on the planning board. But this time, as I say, he's running for Selectman. So I'm very pleased to have him here. Oh, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me again.
So now, can you tell me just a little bit about yourself? I know we've discussed this before when you've been on before, but just a little bit about what you do and what your background is.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you once again. I know I said it last year, but I want to say thank you once again for providing this service to the town. You, everybody here at NCTV.
Oh, that's very kind of you. We don't often hear that in the shows.
It is absolutely invaluable for people like me who are doing reresearch on historical information and meetings that have happened in the past. So thank you so much for all
that's
you do.
Great. I'm so glad to hear it.
So as you had mentioned, I was on last year and we talked a lot about my background and where I'd gone to school and my degree program. I did go to school in Rhode Island. I studied hospitality management there and I worked in hotels and restaurants thereafter. From there, I worked my way into corporate restaurant management and doing strategic deployment. We came up with a lot of work with finances and budgeting and things of that nature. And so today, I've moved into a role working with a restaurant software company in Boston, managing deployment for our software solution into some of the largest restaurant companies in the United States.
Now, what is your interest in being on the board? I mean, usually when people run for an office, I think they feel like something needs to change or that they feel that there's something they can offer that maybe is lacking. What would you say is your reason for running for Selectman?
Well, a lot of my reason for running is centered around the contribution from residents and the feedback I've gotten from them. In my year on the planning board, I've gotten some great exposure to town governance and the kinds of discussions and processes that happen at the municipal level. On top of that, I've also had the opportunity to connect with a lot of the residents in town and to discuss some of the things that are concerning them. Some of those things including the rising tax rate, 40B developments, the situation with our school systems and infrastructure, and the communication level and the engagement that happens at the government level. A lot of people have expressed concerns or desires to see things done a little differently. And I would hope that in my year on the planning board, I have kind of exemplified some of those traits and been able to put some of those things into motion. And I'd like to try to put that same kind of effect into another board here in town. Well,
let me just ask you a question. Now, of course, a lot of people are interested in this whole thing with run and gun, and I know part of it is some aspects that are in litigation, but would you have voted for an entertainment license?
For me to say that would be a little bit unfounded and unfair. I mean, there's a lot of the discussions that have gone on in the background about this particular case, some of which have been done in an executive session because of the litigation that you discussed. So I would want to get a more rounded view of exactly what was going on and what discussions were had before I'd try to give any kind of inclination of how I would have voted on it.
Now, I think I saw you at one of the meetings, one of the ZBA meetings. Do you think, from what you've paid attention to and do you think that they might actually get through up there at 144 Seekonk? Because I'm doubting they're going to be able to do it. Maybe at least not the way he wanted to do it originally.
Well, I will say that 40B as a whole has been a great focus for me over the course of the last year. Anybody that's followed my page on Facebook has seen that I like to keep everybody up to date, not only on what's going on at the state level to address the concerns with this program, but also to identify what other towns are doing to try to mitigate some of the risks and concerns that come along with these projects. I've been going to ZBA meetings throughout the course of this past year, whether it be for this project or other ones, just to keep in tune with how these things are proceeding, what kind of things are being said, and basically just collecting information so that we can become more informed and knowledgeable about the kinds of projects that are impacting our neighbors. Specific to this one, I mean, I don't know if there's been enough information really conveyed just yet. Don't believe they've even really opened their public hearing process yet for 40B to discuss the specifics of their project. So until we get to that point, I don't know if we'll really be able to have a great determination as to if it'll be able to move forward, if it's viable, if it's financially feasible. But these are all things that our ZBA will be able to wean out and address.
Well, I'm surprised they haven't, right off the bat, taken issue with the fact that what I saw of the plans, there was only one way in and the same way out. I don't see how that could stand, especially up on a hill like that. And he's looking at 104 units, whatever that means. I think there's houses and then
there's an apartment complex as well. Correct.
Is it apartment or is it condominium?
Oh, that's a good question. They are rental. I know that. I'm not sure if they are apartment or if they're townhomes.
Oh, well, then they would, no, but I meant if they were going to be owner-occupied as condominiums.
Yeah.
Oh, they're rental.
A component that is rental, yes.
Because the latest issue has been with the clearing up there. And I don't know, I was at that last meeting. I thought it was kind of interesting. What was your reaction to that? Because he seemed like he had a very clever attorney with him.
And that attorney has been in a bunch of projects that we've had coming through town.
Oh, he had the same one, the young man?
Correct.
D'Agostino.
Yep.
Because it seemed to me that he had all these visuals, these photos, aerial photos, and it didn't seem like there was much reaction to that. I thought that was a pretty good proof that some of that clearing had already. I mean, I'm no defender of the project, but I was surprised that didn't seem to hold much water with the board.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of a push and pull with everything, correct? I mean, there was definitely some clearing done that was done before this initial instance that we were reviewing at that point. The ZBA did a great job of vetting out exactly when the dates laid out and how that lined up with the things that our building commissioner had identified when he went on site. And I think that it was a middle ground there. I mean, there was some that was done, but there was more that was done after that point. And I think that the ZBA, once again, they did a great job of identifying that and making it clear what their determination was before they go into their proceedings to talk about it.
What did you think their decision? I didn't get the feeling that there was any.
Oh, there
I had to
wasn't
leave
yet.
before it was finished, to tell you the truth.
Right.
But it just seemed to me that they didn't acknowledge those visuals from 2005 and 2007. But I don't know, maybe I missed something.
I got the sense that they acknowledged that they were there and that there was some portion of it that had been done at that time, but they also acknowledged the fact that it wasn't to the level or scope that they were reviewing at that point with the pictures that were being reviewed from boots on the ground by the individual that they had gotten to go on site after the fact.
Yes, that fellow, the hydrologist.
Correct.
You know, somebody was talking to me the other day or asking me about tax rates, and I was astonished that our tax rate is lower than Medfield's, because I mean Medfield's more expensive than Norfolk, but of course Medfield has more business than we do, and it's always seemed to me, I'd mentioned this in another interview that the town has never been. I mean, they're probably more business friendly now than they've ever been, but when I first moved here, I was very, very not business friendly at all.
Right.
And I know there's this tax rate. Is the tax rate the same on commercial as residential?
In our town it is, yes.
Oh, not necessarily in all the towns?
No, some towns have a split rate.
Oh, they do? So do you feel that the tax rate is overly high, or do you think that the lack of business would have helped us or would help us?
A lot of what I base my platform on is really based on the input that I get from residents. And the input that I've gotten from residents in our town is that the tax rate is high, to the point where it's almost pricing some people out of their homes. And looking at the comparisons about how our tax rate compares to our neighbors, last year I talked about how the percentage of our tax rate compared to those around us and the dollars per thousand of assessed value compared to those around us. And that wasn't received very well. I mean, there was a lot of debate as to if that's actually a number that could be compared against given the differences in assessed value in different towns around us. So I went back and I looked for other metrics associated to our tax rate, specifically the average tax bill that a home in our town pays compared to those towns around us. And what you'll see is that our average rate is somewhere around $8,400 per year, When you compare that to the towns around us, yes, it might not be as high as Medfield or other towns that we border, but if you look at the amount that it's been going up over the course of the last 10 to 15 years or so, we blow our neighboring towns away. Right now, if you look at towns like Medfield and Walpole and Plainville and Rentham, you're looking at an increase from 2003 till now of about 60 to 70%. Norfolk, 92%.
92% increase?
Increase between 2003 to where we are now in the average rate paid by a household in our town.
So where do the selectmen fall in on that?
Well, the main function of the selectmen, as you probably heard before, is to balance the budget for a given year. There's a lot of people who have their hands in on that budget. We have a finance director in town. We have a town administrator who has a strong financial background. And we have an advisory board that does a detailed review of that budget on an annual basis. But there is opportunity to be able to look at these things with another set of eyes. And I feel like having somebody who isn't necessarily been ingrained in those processes and that kind of background couldn't be of anything less than a benefit to that process. Like I had said before, I've worked with budgets at the corporate level in those kind of different professional environments and had no problem with asking questions about where things are coming from and where they fall on the need versus want scale. So
what other thoughts do you have about your candidacies? Is there anything else that you might want to tell us about?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different things. We've talked about a wide range of different issues.
We were talking about 40B and R before we went on the air.
Yes, absolutely. So,
what is R? I've never quite understood that.
40R is essentially a zoning overlay district that a town can use that is in coordination with the state to be able to create an area that is designated for smart growth. What this area will do is it gives the town the ability to push that growth to an area that they designate as being optimal for that kind of dense housing. If you're able to fall within a couple of guidelines from the state as far as the density that's being used for this region, you're able to get things like grants from the state for assistance. You're able to get some mitigation money for the effect of school-aged children. You're able to get many different benefits associated to the kind of impacts that you'd be concerned about with these things happening outside of regions that you deem appropriate.
But the 40R is all moderate income or whatever you want to call it.
Not necessarily. Is that right? 25% or 20% can be accommodated just for affordable housing, just as it would be with the 40B program.
Because I had heard that if the town, say, fights too hard against the developer, who would say bringing in like a 20, like 144C, bringing in 25%, although I know they haven't started those discussions yet, but say with a 25% of a 40B, that then they can go to the state and make a case and have even more waivers and do a completely 40B or complete low income.
Correct.
Am I right about that?
Yeah, one of the risks that are associated with 40B is if a ZBA deems a project as not being appropriate or not being good enough for the town to accept, they can decline the project in the application, in which case the developer can then go to the state and appeal that decision. If the state overturns the municipal ZBA's decision on that application, the developer is then granted the license that they need to move forward with their 40B as originally proposed. So if there was any kind of leverage that the town had to be able to come to a middle ground with accommodations from the developer, whether it be reduction in units, open space preservation, et cetera, that could essentially be lost in the event of an appeal.
Are we the only state in the United States that does this?
That does affordable housing programs?
That has this idea that each town has to have 10% affordable housing.
Oh, I don't believe that we're the only state in the nation that gives a threshold for how much affordable housing is necessary. But I do think that we're one of the most aggressive in the nation at it, and that is because of the need. I don't think anybody will argue with you that there's a need for affordable housing. I think the issue with the program is the way that it takes away a lot of the control of municipality to be able to actually implement and plan these kind of things over time, instead of just taking a big hit all at once. So yes, there are some things to be said about, everybody had 40 years the program has been in place to be able to get to their 10%, and they haven't done so yet. But at the end of the day, there's people in towns now who were in here 40 years ago who are willing to make these things work. And I think that we do need to work with the state on adjusting the program to make it a little bit more palatable and giving towns a little bit more leverage in these processes.
But it seems like the towns don't have much leverage at all. I mean, it seems like it's kind of a fait accompli that these are just going to keep coming ahead because, well, first of all, I mean, as you bring in all these these developments and the population gets higher, that 10% number is higher. So it's sort of like you're not going to catch up for long. I mean, you
You're
might
right.
be. I think, are we right now in a position where we have enough in Norfolk? Did I hear that right? I thought
Right
I
now,
heard someone.
we are under a one-year safe harbor. And that
Okay.
is because we were able to produce 16 affordable housing units since we approved our housing production plan. If we're able to get another 16 in a calendar year, that'll add another year onto our safe harbor status. But that has a limit. Basically, the way that you manage this is with proactive action and being able to take a look at things like 40R districts. When we had a 40B presentation by the Department of Housing when they came down, they identified via a specific question, if we have a 40R district available for development, can we deny another 40B development outside of that district and identify that they need to be developing there? And they said yes. They said that in some cases they've seen that, and if they think that it still works for that developer, they will absolutely allow a town to deny the project so that it can be pushed to that 40R district. And again, one of the benefits of having that kind of proactive nature, but these are the kinds of things we talk about when we talk about strategic planning and trying to stay ahead of these kinds of instances in the future.
Now, what about the town planner? I haven't heard much about him or heard. Isn't he supposed to be really involved in this kind of thing?
Absolutely, and he has been. I've had a couple of meetings with
you
Rich
have?
already, and he's been very insightful in kind of things that he's seen work, not only in the towns he's worked in before, but also in other towns with other town planners. So he's been a great partner so far and has some great ideas for us moving forward.
Does he sit in on the Board of Selectmen's meetings?
He's asked to. I don't believe that he's a normal attendee, but if there is something of interest that he needs to speak to, he does attend to talk to it.
I have a question. I know that, for example, over at the senior center, the person who's the director there now only answers to one person. Shouldn't that be the whole board? I understand that she only answers to Jack Hathaway.
Correct.
Shouldn't it be the selectmen?
Well, I mean, you have to think about the different responsibilities that fall into the town organization. Jack Hathaway, as a town administrator, essentially manages all of the departments of town employees in town. The Board of Selectmen is more of a body built to review, oversee, like we had talked about before, balance the budget, grant licenses, things of that nature. I don't believe that they really get in the business of managing individuals as town employees outside of Mr. Hathaway, of course.
What is how do you feel things are going to work out with these 40Bs and the school population? Have you paid any attention to that? Because I mean, I know that they have a couple of wings over there at the Kennedy.
Yep.
But there's more to it than just finding more places to put tables and chairs.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a parent to a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old, I'm very vested in the Norfolk school systems for the next 20 years or so. So identifying any opportunities that we have to be able to accommodate for incoming residential growth is definitely at the forefront. I know that we do have the plans in place to be able to expand if needed, and there are also some contingency plans around to be able to mitigate different grades between different buildings, between HOD and Freeman Kennedy. But making sure that we stay ahead of that, and like I said before, proactively planning to ensure that there are no gaps is very, very important.
Because I would imagine if you have more people coming in, again, I mean, I would imagine have more people coming in paying less money for these affordable houses. They're going to be paying less taxes, and the taxes you'd need more tax money to make some of these improvements to accommodate all these extra children. So it's really not going to fall so much on the shoulders of the people with affordable housing.
Oh, that's correct. I mean, the allocation of tax payments does vary based on the assessed value of one's home, but there are other ways to be able to mitigate that kind of impact. One of the projects that we currently have in front of us in town has been deemed as a 55 and older community. That will have much less impact on the infrastructure and on the schools than a normal project would.
Well, we have Boyd's Crossing.
Boyd's Crossing is not 55 and over.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Which one are you thinking of then?
The Enclave.
No, where's that?
Village Green.
I don't even know about that. Oh my God.
Well,
what part of town is that in?
Village Green is if you're coming down 115 and you go off Cleveland, it's in that area right there.
Oh, yes, okay.
It's the old Boy Scout land is what it's been deemed
for. Yeah. Has that been, is that in planning?
That is currently in front of the ZBA.
Oh, it is. Mm-hmm. Have you had any Does anybody know anything? Do you know anything about it? Anything about the particulars, or?
I mean, the only thing that I know about the project specifically is that it's 56 units with 14 affordables, and it's no rentals. It's all owned.
All right. Well, are you expecting to have any? I know you had one coffee at the Grange.
I did.
Are you expecting to have any other ones?
Well, we do have a couple of events going on over the course of the next couple of weeks. We haven't identified an opportunity to have another kind of meet and greet coffee event. But as we try to gauge interest, most of our focus right now is going to be on going door to door. I've had some great interactions with people, and I feel like that's the best way to gain insight into what kind of issues are impacting the community on a day-to-day basis.
And the events you just mentioned?
There'll be a couple of discussions that we're going to be having with groups around town. We're going to be doing the candidates night on the 24th.
That's right.
Those types of things.
Oh, all righty. Well, listen, very best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And it's been nice to talk to you again.
Absolutely. You as well.
And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, all righty. And thank you for watching State and Local. There'll be a few more candidates coming my way in the next couple of days. Actually, another one tonight. So we'll be sending those out. And my name is Anne Marie Battistone, and you've been watching Norfolk Public Access. This is State and Local. Thank you.